What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm your girl Safari, and thank you for following me over to the YouTube channel. If you aren't already, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell and like this video, right? Because if it's meant for you, great. If not, get it out to the people that it's meant for. Now, today's topic is about spirituality versus religion. Listen, I wanted to open up the floor to have this conversation with you guys because there's so much negativity associated with the word spirituality versus religion, when in actuality it's just about having a conversation about it, right? And let me be very clear, me opening up the floor to have this conversation with you, it's not about me swaying you to become spiritual or religious. I'm just talking about my experience and what I consider as what I think for myself, and just opening up the floor for you guys to have a conversation here. Now, first of all, let's just start with the fact that let's just start with the animosity, because I feel like it's there, and it's so like everyone is so touchy when it comes to this. Everybody's so touchy when it comes to this subject, because it's like, I get it. I'm actually going to be talking about topics that were embedded into people as a child. So there are a lot of paradigms that people are committed to having. So, it can be very hard to break out of that or be open-minded to even have this conversation. So first of all, kudos to you for being open-minded enough to even watch my video. So, like I said, let's get into it, guys. Let's start with the facts. First of all, I consider myself spiritual. Okay. And I started this journey, I want to say recently, but it's not really recently. I'd say like 4 or 5 years ago, really. It really hit home during the pandemic, but we'll get to that. I grew up Catholic. I was, a Christian. Is it Catholic? Anyway, I grew up Christian, and my mom took me to church almost every Sunday, and faithfully, right? And here's the thing about religion. When you are young, in some way, shape, or form, you take on whatever your parents teach you, really, especially when it comes in the area of spirituality. And for my mom, like I said, she was Christian, so she took us to church. I knew of God, but I didn't know what, you know what I mean? I knew of God. I knew that he was good. I knew that he was right. I knew that my mom would cry almost every time she would go there. And I knew that some of the words that the pastors were speaking, I knew that it held truth. And I knew that it was a way to give people a sense of freedom and release. And I just knew that he was a good God, a good spirit. So for me, like I said, when you're young, whatever your parents' religion is, that's your default. But as you grow up, you don't really circle back around to that until you develop a relationship with God for yourself, which is just all a matter of understanding. Like, it's just a matter of really knowing knowing who you are and knowing what route you want to take based off of your own personal relationship with him, which is why I come to the facts of religion. First of all, I said in my video before, religion is something that is man-made. For all of you Bible scholars out there who are like hawking my page, like, why would you, first of all, you know better than I do about the Bible page for page, I'm sure. But what I'm saying, when I say religion is man-made, I say that because religion originated way back in the day and was something that was forced onto Black people through the white settlers, right? I mean, literally, they came in and just took on whatever type of religion that the white people had, right? And it was taught to them, it was taught to our people to worship in some type of way, but we were essentially worshiping their God, right? And as us Black people, mind you, we're all being enslaved, just taking on the form of worship that they're given to us. We didn't really take our independence back until we were set free. And one of our versions, what we considered freedom, was we took the idea of religion seriously, but we wanted to specify that and identify that for ourselves. So we broke away once we got our freedom, and we started, that's when the Black church essentially started really coming in. It didn't really settle in for us or become a big thing until we really got our freedom away from the white man. And I don't want to freak you guys out or like make this a racial thing, because it's not. I'm just telling you guys what I know, and a lot of this is coming from my history book. So these are the facts, at least the facts in the book. But moving on. So when we finally got our freedom, we got to identify what religion was for ourselves. So once we started doing that, that's when it really started to, become embedded in our culture. But it's being passed down from one generation to the next, religion, because that's all we knew essentially was religion. But fast forward, guys, I really started to dive deeper into my spiritual journey when, there was this moment in time where I felt like, first of all, when the pandemic hit, it set everybody down. I talk about this a lot, but it's true. So when the pandemic hit, I kind of I feel like it was like a void. It felt like the foundation that was there was completely robbed from all of us. And we had to get a good look at who we were as individuals outside of our hobbies, outside of what we were told, outside of, our daily, everyday task. And we had to really sit with who we were as people outside of identifying with anything else. So for me, my spiritual journey really started when I started questioning everything, right? Because who am I without my identifiers, without my job, without my status, without my money? Who am I without that? So when I got to that point of questioning everything, it really also opened up the floor of my religion too, because for so long, I didn't really know what I was. Like, I knew that I was Christian because that's what my mom taught me. But for a long time, it was kind of just like, I'm a Christian and I don't really know what that means. I don't have a relationship with God to specifically identify. So if you were to come up to me and say, hey, well, why are you religious? Why Christianity? Why that? I couldn't tell you, because and even if I could tell you, it would probably point back to the fact that that's what I grew up with, right? So, when I went through this period of questioning who I was as an individual, I got curious. I got really curious about who God was, right? Not just in the sense of like him being the holiest of holy and, no, I wanted to know him on a personal level, because I feel like when we look at God as that, we place him on a pedestal, which is good. You're supposed to, in a sense. But sometimes when you place him on a pedestal to, like you're taught to do in your religious upbringing, you disassociate a little bit. It makes him so distant from you that you feel like there is no way to have a relationship with someone that high. And even with that in mind, sometimes we project onto the idea of God our judgments, and we kind of look at him. If we place him on that pedestal, we look at him like he'll look down at us and he's like the principal who's going to tell us to, if you don't follow everything by the rule book, or if you disobey the Bible, then you're sinful and I don't count you as, you're not worthy. So it can become very easy to start like projecting those fears and insecurities onto him. And like I said, that all that does is get you further and further away from the relationship that's supposed to be built with God. And that's all the difference is for me. Like I said, I just got curious about what it meant to have a relationship with God. And that's what led me to the path of spirituality. I felt like I cannot know who God is if I don't know who I am as an individual. So when I got more curious about who I was, it just kept pointing me back to God, because it was literally a point in time in my path where I felt I did a lot of things on my own. I moved out of the house when I was 18. I got my own apartment. I went through several different, relationships that were really detrimental to my mental health. And I just got more and more distant from myself, so much so that when those numbing the things that I used to identify with were taken away from me, now it was like, okay, well, who am I now? So I wanted to become more of my authentic self. And the only way that I could do that was by going to the creator, the one who created me, not my mom, not my dad, my God. I had to go to God, because there was nobody in sight. God had placed me in a position where it was just me and him. Right. And in that moment, it kind of, it made me understand the character of God, right? And that's when I started to see the difference between spirituality and religion, because, see, religion kind of puts you in a position where you're taught everything by the book. And I started to see it as, okay, wait a minute. The Bible, or to the religious way of doing things, is if you do X, Y, and Z, then you'll get X, Y, and Z results. And if you ever stray away from that, then you're looked at as sinful. You're looked at as, God is a forgiving God. He'll always forgive you. But that doesn't stop the fact that you're being labeled as a sinner. You're being labeled as, these negative things associated with that. And I think that's just that's tied to the religious aspect of it. It's honestly not the person's fault. It's what they are taught. That's what's in the church, right? Like, if you are religious, then there are certain rules, certain guidelines, certain things in the Bible that you have to abide by. But that within itself it didn't really resonate with who I was. And see, that's the main thing that you have to determine for yourself. What resonates with you? Because like I said, when you're a child, you're just taking on what you're given, and you're just blindlessly following it because it seems like the right thing to do. You're just trying to honor where you come from, and that's honorable. I get it. But it isn't specific. And see, religion to me is just a specific relationship that you have with God, and that's what you have to create. So it's different for everybody. I can understand why some people would say, nah, I don't consider myself spiritual, and I don't want to go that route. I want to stick to this, because that's your choice. That's what your path or your understanding has led you to. My path and my understanding has led me to spirituality because it felt more open, it felt more fluid, it felt more personal. So for me, I also want to touch on this subject too, because a lot of people, there's actually this one girl in particular I used to go to high school with. She kind of like, she was a Bible thumper, like, and no disrespect to people who honor the Bible. I swear I am not trying to disrespect y'all. I'm just going based off of my experience. But there was this girl I used to go to high school with, and I think I posted something that was very open-minded, and it leaned more so on the spiritual side. And she kind of just went off on me a little bit. It was pretty much just like, well, you don't understand, that's not the way of God. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that. And it kind of set me back a little bit, because it made me question if what I'm saying is right, if what I'm doing is right. Right? But see, what you also have to understand, even with that, is there's nothing neither right or wrong. It's the intention behind what it is that you are doing that makes it that way, right? So for me, like I said, I had to develop a very personal relationship with God, because a lot of my upbringing stemmed from silence. I was really sheltered as a kid, but I also started to develop a relationship with myself that felt like I had to be closed off. I had to be silent. I didn't really know who I was. It was easy for me to be molded. It was easy for me to be kind of shut down and taught a specific way. It was easy for me to do that. So when I started to break away from that paradigm, I was able to get a good look at myself. And I didn't like the fact that a lot of my ideologies were centered around other people. So when I started gaining back my independence, like I said, all of that pointed towards God. It was like, okay, if you want to really know who you are, you need to get to know the character of God. And within that moment, I started to really sink more into my authenticity. I started to lose a lot of people in my life. It was like the more I got closer to God, the more he cleared the path to make sure that he sat me down where it was nothing but him and I. It was nothing but him, me, and God. And in that moment, I was able to develop a true relationship with him. And that's how I was able to pick spirituality over religion, because it was a relationship that taught me the foundations of what it means to actually have a relationship. And see, the basis of anything, any type of relationship is about the foundation, which should be about trust. It should be about true love, unconditional love. And see, when you love something unconditionally, you don't hold on tight to it or put conditions around it or say that if you do this, I don't love you anymore. That's man-made, and that is religion. So when I accepted that, I started to, about, spirituality, I accepted that about myself. So I started going down this path, and it opened up a lot of doors and a lot of wounds about, like I said, the mindsets that I took on as a kid. And spirituality, it really just, it opened up the floor for me to question things, right? Because I feel like sometimes when you're very religious, it's hard to kind of question things to a certain extent. But with spirituality, it's just more fluid. It's fluid to me because, like I said, when it was just me being curious about who God was, it just pointed me more so towards myself, right? Because the fact that I got curious about God, I simultaneously got curious about me, because, God says, like, before you were born, I knew you. So I got curious. I was like, okay, so what do you see? Because there is a level of, like I said, unconditional love that's associated with spirituality that says, I'm going to teach you who you are, but you have to understand the character of who I am in order to recognize that what you're about to go through is a journey. There are going to be points in time where you are going to be confused. You are going to be scared. You are going to have your ups and you are going to have your downs, but through it all, I will be with you. So I also kind of want to clear this up too, guys. First of all, I don't know where this came from. I don't know where this came from. I get it, but I don't know where it came from. A lot of people tend to think that spirituality is a direct relationship with witchcraft and, oh, it's darkness and you're not supposed to go that route. I don't know where it came from, but let me be very clear. I consider myself spiritual, and I do not dabble with that darkness. I don't dabble with that. I don't. So I'm not going to sit up here and say that I don't, I don't do certain practices. Of course, like I burn sage, I do my thing, but to demonize someone just because of their level of understanding is something that really isn't even in the character of God. God is patient. God is kind. God is, loving and accepting. And if we really want to talk about the facts, God never said anything about religion. God said nothing about religion, and he said his goal behind all of it was about relationship. It was never about, I want you to follow these set of rules. A Bible wasn't even created until after Jesus died. Wait, years after Jesus died. A church wasn't even created until after Jesus died, because his entire practice had nothing to do with a building or a book. It had everything to do with understanding the character and the heart posture of who God is for yourself. And that's really what I want to drive the message home with. All of this is about developing a relationship with God for yourself. And that's going to branch off into so many different directions for you, because you're going to grow with having a relationship with God. You're going to grow with it. So to say that everything, this is just one specific way, this is how you're supposed to do it, and you're wrong if you don't do it this way, is insane. Because you do things at the level of your understanding. So to do something continuously without questioning it over time, it can make you, it makes the relationship of the aspect very stagnant. But see, when you make that switch over to spirituality, it's not a stagnant situation. It's growth, it's ups and downs. It's being able to come to God and say, hey, I did this. I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing things the right way. I don't know if I'm, I don't know if what's right or what's wrong. But one of the main things that God has really taught me about having a relationship with him is the basis of having that relationship is centered around trust and love. That's the only thing that matters to God, is that you have that relationship for yourself to know what is of him and what is not. And when you have true love, or the true essence of trust, then you know that it's, like I said, it's not anything that is confined. It's something that signifies freedom. Freedom to explore, freedom to learn for yourself. So that's what I kind of want to leave it there, guys, because I can go on and on with this topic, but I want to open up the floor to see what you guys think. And, if you are religious and you want to don't, okay, we can have a conversation about this, but I will not sit through the arguments. We're not going to argue. We're going to have a conversation. So let me know what you guys think. Let's open up the floor to have a conversation about this. Leave me a comment. Make sure you're subscribed over to the channel, and I'll see you next time, guys.